Most people don't realize they're speaking to themselves in ways that quietly poison their own lives. Every day, in 1,000 small whispers, they say things like, "I can't," "I'm not enough," or "it never works out for me." These words don't vanish into thin air. They sink in. They shape your mood, your choices, your belief in what's possible. And slowly, without noticing, you become the story you've been repeating to yourself all along. But here's the truth. The way you talk to yourself can either push everything you desire further away or pull it closer, like iron to a magnet. The question is, what story are you telling yourself? And is it creating the life you actually want? Inside every person, there is a voice that never stops speaking. You know it well. It's the voice that comments on your every move, judges your mistakes, and narrates your day even when no one else is around. Most of the time, we hardly notice it. It blends into the background like the hum of a machine. And yet this hidden dialogue has more influence over your life than nearly anything else. The Stoics understood this deeply. Seneca once said, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." What he meant was that our thoughts and the words we feed ourselves often wound us far more than the actual events of life. A harsh word you tell yourself in the mirror can linger longer than someone else's insult. A phrase like, "I'll never change," becomes not just a thought, but a quiet law you start to obey. Think about how much of your day is shaped not by what others say to you, but by what you say to yourself. That silent voice can either be a steady hand guiding you through chaos or a storm pulling you under. When unchecked, it becomes the harshest critic you'll ever know. But when disciplined and trained, it becomes the calm inner guide that reminds you of who you are and what you are capable of. This is the starting point for attracting anything you desire. To recognize that the most powerful conversation you'll ever have is the one taking place inside your own mind. Words are not just sounds or marks on a page. They are builders or destroyers, depending on how we use them. The words you speak to yourself are like bricks. They can construct a foundation strong enough to carry the weight of your life, or they can leave you standing on sand that collapses at the first pressure. Marcus Aurelius wrote to himself every morning, not to impress others, but to remind his own mind of what was true and what was within his control. He wrote simple lines like, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Those words became pillars, steadying him through wars, plagues, and betrayal. When you tell yourself, "I can't," that phrase becomes a locked door. When you whisper, "I am learning," the same moment becomes an open path. Language doesn't just describe reality, it carves it. Two people can face the same difficulty. One says, "This will break me," the other says, "This will shape me." The same obstacle, but two completely different destinies. We often think thoughts pass harmlessly, like clouds drifting across the sky. But words are seeds, and seeds grow roots. Left unattended, the words of despair sprout thorns, and the words of hope blossom into strength. That is why the discipline of choosing your inner language is not a trivial matter. It is the work of building the very framework of your existence. If you wish to attract what you desire, you must begin by speaking words that create the space for it to live. Why do so many desires slip through our fingers? It isn't always because the dream is impossible or the path is blocked. More often, it is because we sabotage ourselves before we even begin. Think of how often people long for success, love, or peace, yet the words they repeat in private are the opposite of those desires. "I'm not good enough. Things never work out for me. I don't deserve better." These quiet phrases may seem small, but they accumulate. Day after day, they drip into the soil of the mind like water carving a canyon. Over time, the canyon becomes so deep that even when opportunity arrives, it cannot cross. The Stoics believed that our judgments, not events, are what disturb us. If you constantly judge yourself as unworthy, then no amount of external success will feel secure. A person can be surrounded by opportunities, yet if their inner voice whispers failure, they will walk away from doors already open. This is why desire often feels like chasing smoke. You reach out, but your own breath scatters it. Consider this. When you tell yourself you cannot, your mind does not argue. It quietly obeys. Your body follows. Your choices shrink to fit the story you have been telling. And so the desire you thought was beyond your reach was never denied by the world. It was denied by the voice you trusted most, your own. The first barrier to attracting what you want is not outside you. It is the small, persistent whisper that says you cannot have it. Many people believe that speaking harshly to themselves is the way to grow stronger. They think discipline means scolding, insulting, or tearing themselves down. If I'm hard enough on myself, they say, I won't make the same mistake again. But look closely at what actually happens. Harsh self-talk does not strengthen. It weakens. It piles shame on top of failure, guilt on top of pain. Instead of learning, you become stuck. Instead of moving forward, you hesitate, fearing the voice inside that lashes out at every step. The Stoics never encouraged cruelty toward the self. They taught calm examination. Marcus Aurelius wrote about his own flaws without rage, but with clarity. Here is a weakness. Here is a habit to improve. Here is a place I can practice virtue. There was no need to scream at himself, because the truth was already enough. When you see a cracked wall, you repair it. You don't take a hammer and smash the entire house. Think of how you speak to a friend who makes a mistake. You may be honest, but you are not vicious. You point out the error with the hope they'll grow from it. Why should you speak to yourself any differently? The illusion is that harshness equals strength, but in reality it builds resistance, resentment, and fear. True discipline is quiet, steady, and reasonable. If you want to move closer to your desires, you must stop fighting against yourself as if you were your own enemy. The voice in your head must become a guide, not a tormentor. There is a simple shift that changes everything, moving from the language of limitation to the language of possibility. Most people close doors with their words before they've even tried the handle. I can't do this. That's impossible for someone like me. These phrases don't describe reality. They create a smaller one. The moment you replace I can't with I'm learning or I will find a way, the mind begins to explore instead of retreat. Ancient thinkers understood this well. The Stoics wrote daily reminders to themselves, not because they enjoyed repetition, but because they knew the mind needed training just like the body. Marcus Aurelius returned again and again to the same truths. Control what is in your power, accept what is not. Live with reason and virtue. His words were not lofty speeches for others. They were personal affirmations meant to guide his own behavior in the chaos of life. In every age, people have used words to stretch beyond their current limits. Prayers, mantras, affirmations, they all serve the same purpose: to hold the mind steady and open. When you speak in terms of possibility, you are not denying difficulty. You are acknowledging it while keeping the door open for growth. A challenge becomes a teacher. A setback becomes a stepping stone. Your self-talk is the map you follow. If your words point only to dead ends, you will walk into them again and again. But if your words sketch paths forward, even in uncertainty, your mind begins to see routes you could not notice before. To attract what you desire, You must speak as if the path exists, even before you see it clearly. Desire is not the same as need, and this difference matters when we speak to ourselves. The Stoics taught that most suffering comes from confusing the two. A need is simple: food, shelter, rest, companionship. A desire is often larger, reaching into the realm of ambition, achievement, or comfort. There is nothing wrong with desire, but when the words we use feed shallow cravings, they leave us restless. When our self-talk circles around what we think we must have in order to be whole, it becomes a chain rather than a compass. Imagine someone saying to themselves each day, "I'll only be happy if I get this job," or "I'll only be enough when this person loves me." Those words narrow life to a single fragile outcome. If that outcome fails, despair sets in. If it succeeds, satisfaction is brief, because the craving soon shifts to something else. This is why unchecked desire often feels endless. It multiplies the more you feed it with needy words. But when your inner language aligns with reason, desire becomes purposeful. To say, "I am working toward mastery," or "I seek to live with courage," directs your energy toward what builds character. These are desires that attract rather than enslave. They don't depend on the approval of others, nor do they vanish when circumstances shift. The key is to examine your self-talk and ask, am I speaking from craving or from purpose? If your words are rooted in neediness, they scatter your strength. If they are rooted in principle, they gather it. To attract what truly matters, your inner voice must be trained to nourish worthy desires and let go of the ones that hollow you out. The way you speak to yourself does not stay hidden. It shows up in how you walk into a room, how you meet someone's eyes, how you carry your shoulders. The world mirrors back the treatment you give yourself. If your inner voice is full of doubt, you will move with hesitation. If it is calm and respectful, others will feel it before you even say a word. Epictetus, born a slave, understood this deeply. Though his body was bound, he spoke to himself as a free man. He reminded his students that no one could chain the mind unless it allowed itself to be chained. The way he framed his own suffering shaped how others saw him, not as broken, but as unshaken. His self-talk became a mirror in which his students saw dignity reflected back. The same happens today, though in smaller ways. A person who constantly repeats, "I am worthless," eventually moves as if it's true, and the world treats them accordingly. Another who tells themselves, "I can handle this," radiates steadiness, and people instinctively trust them. The words you whisper are like signals carried in your tone, your energy, your posture. This is not about pretending or faking confidence. It is about speaking inwardly in such a way that your outer life naturally reflects it. When you respect yourself in thought, you carry that respect into action, and the world, like a mirror, tends to give back what it sees. To attract what you desire, you must first become the kind of person who speaks to themselves in alignment with it. Then, without force, the reflection begins to change. Every word you repeat to yourself is a seed. Some seeds fall onto fertile ground and grow strong. Others fall among thorns and choke. Most of the time, you are planting without even noticing. Each morning thought, each quiet judgment, each repeated phrase takes root somewhere in the soil of your mind. Over weeks, months, and years, these words grow into beliefs that shape the entire landscape of your life. If the seeds are negative, "I'm not capable," "I don't deserve happiness," "life is against me," then those roots spread like weeds. They entangle your confidence, drain your energy, and make it harder to grow anything healthy. You may not even remember when you started speaking that way, yet the results surround you like a wild garden left untended. But the same law applies to positive seeds. Repeated words of patience, strength, and purpose eventually push through the soil. They don't bloom overnight. Just as a farmer waits for the season to ripen, you must wait for your inner language to take form in reality. The work is in the planting, in the quiet discipline of choosing what to say to yourself each day. Ask yourself, what seeds am I planting today? When frustration rises, do I water the weeds with harsh self-talk? Or do I plant resilience with a simple phrase like, "This will pass and I will learn"? The mind is always listening. What you tell it again and again becomes the forest you will one day walk through. To attract what you desire, begin by sowing words that will grow into the life you want to live. The world will always test you. There will be days when everything seems to resist you, plans fall apart, people disappoint you, the weight of life presses hard. In those moments, it's tempting to believe your desires are slipping further away. But what matters most is not the challenge itself, it is the words you choose inside while facing it. Marcus Aurelius, leading armies and carrying the burden of an empire, reminded himself daily of hardship. He wrote that people would be selfish, cruel, and ungrateful, but he resolved not to let their behavior make him bitter. His journal wasn't written for others. It was his way of guarding his own mind against despair. He knew the outer world was unpredictable, but the inner world was his to guide. When you meet obstacles, your self-talk becomes either your greatest shield or your deepest wound. Say to yourself, "This is unfair, I can't take it," and your strength dissolves. Say, "This is difficult, but I can endure." And suddenly, the same weight becomes a training ground. Your words decide whether adversity becomes a wall or a stepping stone. No one escapes hardship. The Stoics would say, you don't control the storm, but you control how you steer your ship through it. Self-talk is the hand on the rudder. When the waves rise, when others falter, the quiet voice inside can either panic or steady you. To attract what you desire, your inner words must not vanish in difficulty. They must grow even calmer, even clearer, reminding you that what stands in the way can also serve as the way forward. Attracting what you desire is not just about repeating hopeful phrases. It is about alignment, making sure that your inner words and your outward actions move in the same direction. If you speak one way to yourself but live another, your energy scatters. The mind grows restless, the body hesitates, and desire slips further away. Consider someone who tells themselves, "I am disciplined," yet spends each day avoiding effort. The words ring hollow because they are not joined with action. Another person quietly repeating, "I will take one small step today," and then following through builds an unshakable bond between thought and deed. The second person may seem slower, but they are aligned, and alignment creates momentum. The Stoics were not dreamers lost in words, they were doers guided by reason. Epictetus told his students, "Don't explain your philosophy, embody it." That means your self-talk must not remain empty phrases. It must become a steady current carrying your choices. If you speak of courage, act with courage. If you remind yourself of patience, show patience when tested. This is the law of alignment. Your inner language and your outer behavior must agree. When they do, there is no inner conflict, no wasted energy. You move as one whole person, and that wholeness draws things to you. Others sense it. Opportunities open, and life begins to mirror the steadiness you've cultivated. To attract desire, do not merely speak the words, live them. Let your self-talk be a compass, and let your actions follow the direction it points. Your identity is not something fixed at birth. It is something shaped each day by the words you speak to yourself. Every phrase is like a chisel striking marble, slowly carving the figure you become. You may not notice the changes at first, but with time, the shape grows clear. If your self-talk is filled with doubt, you are sculpting a weaker self. If your self-talk is grounded in strength and clarity, you are carving a figure that can stand tall. Think about it. You cannot rise above the story you tell yourself every day. If you constantly whisper, "I am unlucky," your life will bend to fit that role. If you tell yourself, "I am steady, I am capable of growth," your choices begin to expand. Identity is not made in a single dramatic moment. It is formed in repetition, in the quiet phrases that echo through your mind each morning and night. The Stoics knew this well. Marcus Aurelius did not write his meditations to craft beautiful sentences. He wrote to remind himself of who he wanted to be. His repeated words shaped his character, even as an emperor under immense pressure. In the same way, your identity becomes whatever you feed it. So ask yourself, who are you training yourself to be with your words? Each thought is a stroke of the chisel. Each phrase is another line carved into the stone. With time, the marble reveals the figure hidden within. If you desire a life of strength, peace, or purpose, then your words must already speak as if that life is yours to live. Changing the way you speak to yourself doesn't require grand gestures. It begins with simple practices, small shifts that over time can reshape your entire reality. The first step is awareness. Catch yourself when you speak in ways that diminish you. Notice the quiet phrases like, "I'm not good enough," or "I'll never succeed." These words don't just pass through your mind. They plant seeds, ones that grow into beliefs that limit you. The next step is replacing those words. When you catch yourself in a moment of self-doubt, pause and gently reframe. Instead of "I can't do this," say, "I haven't figured this out yet, but I will." Instead of "I always fail," say, "I learn from every experience and each mistake brings me closer to success." These aren't empty affirmations. They are recalibrations of the mind. They move you from a fixed, negative mindset into a growth-centered one. Journaling is a powerful tool here. The Stoics wrote regularly, not for anyone else, but to clarify their own thoughts and check their progress. A few minutes each day, writing down your thoughts and rephrasing your inner dialogue can help you turn the tide. It's not about forcing positivity, but about realigning your thinking with reality and purpose. Finally, consistency is key. Changing your inner dialogue is not a one-time fix. It's a daily practice, just like any other habit. When you speak to yourself with kindness, patience, and encouragement every day, you begin to change the very foundation on which your desires rest. And with each shift, you grow closer to attracting the life you truly want. The turning point comes when you realize something profound. You are both the speaker and the listener in the conversation with yourself. For so long, you may have seen your thoughts as a passive experience, as if you were merely hearing what the mind throws at you. But in truth, you are the one who shapes those thoughts. The moment you recognize this, everything changes. When you speak to yourself, you are not simply reciting facts. You are reinforcing or reshaping your identity. If you speak to yourself as an enemy, always criticizing, judging, and doubting, you create a conflict within. But when you speak to yourself as a friend, a guide, a mentor, the dynamic shifts. Suddenly, the voice inside becomes a force for your growth, not your defeat. This realization is the key moment. It is the moment when you stop seeing yourself as a victim of your thoughts and start seeing yourself as the creator. The language you use is not just words, it is the building material of your reality. You decide what story you will tell yourself, and in doing so, you decide the life you will live. To speak to yourself as a friend means to speak with understanding, compassion, and strength. It means recognizing that growth isn't about perfection, it's about progress. It means accepting that setbacks are not failures, but opportunities to learn. When you begin to talk to yourself with respect, you stop fighting yourself and start working with yourself. This inner harmony creates the space for everything you desire to flow toward you, naturally and without resistance. As we come to the end of this journey, the message is simple but profound. The way you speak to yourself shapes the life you experience. The words you choose are not just fleeting thoughts, they are the foundation upon which your reality is built. Every day, you are either constructing or deconstructing your future with the language of your mind. If you speak with harshness and doubt, you create walls. If you speak with patience and possibility, you open doors. The Stoics understood this well. They didn't live in a world of idealistic fantasy, but in a world full of challenges. Yet, they found peace and strength by mastering the dialogue within. They knew that while they couldn't control external circumstances, they could always control how they responded to them. And in that control, they found freedom. When you speak to yourself as someone capable, worthy, and resilient, you begin to see the world through that lens. Challenges no longer feel like insurmountable obstacles, but opportunities to grow. Desires no longer seem distant and unattainable, but natural outcomes of a life lived with purpose and clarity. So remember this, your words are powerful. They are the silent architects of your destiny. Speak to yourself in a way that aligns with the life you want to live. Plant the seeds of possibility, nurture them with positive, steady words, and watch as your life begins to reflect the strength, peace, and success you've been quietly calling into existence. If this message resonated with you, take a moment to reflect on the words you speak to yourself. If you want more insights on how to build the life you desire, subscribe and join me in the next video. Let's continue this journey together.